Hi, it's Randy Herman with Keller Williams Realty, bringing you Everything Real Estate, a show that's meant to answer all your real estate questions by interviewing experts in various aspects of the real estate world. And today we're talking about senior housing alternatives, and I have with me an expert in the field, Penny Gordon.
Thank you.
Of Senior Helpers. Thanks so much, Penny, for stopping by.
Thank you.
And looking forward to talking to you about this very important subject. Right. So why don't we start off, and you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Okay.
And then we'll go right into the topic.
Sure. Well, I've been working with Senior Helpers, a private duty home care agency, for about 2 years. Prior to that, I worked in elder care services through the Needham Council on Aging. Working in home care is a wonderful opportunity to help people maintain their quality of life wherever home is. Do you want me to go into a little bit more detail now, or save that for a little?
Yeah.
So when people talk about home care, there is a misconception between what home care is. There's home health, which is clinical. You have physical therapy, occupational therapy, wound management, nursing care, and then you have home care.
Right.
And home care addresses assistance with daily living activities. It's oftentimes companion care. And in our agency, our philosophy is that any care is more than companion care. So the services provided by home health aides and certified nursing assistants. In the state of Massachusetts, there's no licensing or regulations for home care. As such, there's a very wide spectrum of services that are provided. In our agency, all of our aides are certified nursing assistants and home health aides who are overseen and supervised by nurses.
Okay, that's highly important, of course, since they're going to have the direct contact with the clients and providing the care. But let's take just one step back here, and let me tell you from a realtor's point of view what the alternatives are for a senior. What realtors see is that someone who's getting older or has an infirmity or just really wants to put in less work on their domicile will sell and downsize.
Right.
That's one. Two, they can move, and now we see a lot of families moving in with relatives. I think it went up like from 10% to 14%. It was significant. They can move to assisted health care facilities,
Right.
to continuous care facilities, and maybe you can define that for us. What do you see as continuous care facilities?
So oftentimes it's referred to as CCRC, which is a continuing care residential community.
Right.
Oftentimes someone will move in as an independent living. It could be a bungalow, it could be a condo, it's part of a larger community. Within that community, there's different levels of independence. You can be purely independent like we are. You can also have some level of assistance. Then there's also assisted living. More often than not, it's another wing or another part of the community. So if there's a couple and one is perfectly fine, independent, has 100% cognition, but let's say their spouse has Alzheimer's, and they move into the independent part together, but
Right.
as the disease progresses, the person who needs more care will very often move to another wing or another part of the same community.
But they could just stay close to each other.
So they're still staying in the same building per se,
Right.
but they're living independently and with care that meets each of their needs.
Right. Okay, so we have the assisted living, we have the continuous care, and then we have nursing homes, which is...
So in this day and age, nursing homes are more often referred to as skilled nursing facilities or long-term care. And that is what we think of as nursing homes. Very often people go there towards their end of life. There are different levels of assistance. There's assisted living, there's memory care, and then there's long-term care. Depending on the community, depending on the individual's needs, more often than not, it's not a couple. It's not something that people necessarily choose to go to. It's more of a need base,
Right.
whereas your CCRC and independent living is more of a choice. And there's a difference between independent living and 55 plus. 55 plus is 100% independent, you're living alone.
Right.
Independent is still independent with support available. For example, my mother lives in independent living where she has an hour of care a day. If something happens, there's a string to pull. There's nursing availability on the campus.
Right.
It's not included in her monthly fees, but it's available to her.
But that's considered assisted living.
That's independent.
That's independent.
Independent.
Okay. Got it.
She is 100% independent, but that's the left side of the building. The right side of the building is more of your assisted living, and
Right.
that's where services and more care is provided.
It's complicated. There's a lot of
very
different
complicated.
levels of care
Yes, there is.
nowadays.
Yes.
And then, of course, there is what you're involved in, which is home care. And from a realtor's point of view, we see this all the time. I do a lot of door knocking, and there's a lot of seniors who are at home. And I ask them, are they thinking about moving? I'm looking for inventory for my buyers. And many of them just say, you'll never get me out of here unless I go
Correct.
feet first. Or the only other place I'm moving to is up there.
And also what you often see is a couple, let's say the wife has Alzheimer's and the husband is going to take care of her. They're not leaving their house. Period, end of story, they're not selling. What do you do to keep them safe at home? He needs assistance because caring for someone is very, very taxing.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's always the fear that they're not going to have enough money. So very often the best solution is to not sell the house or the condo, stay where you are, and quite frankly, take out a reverse mortgage or use equity in the house or use savings to remain in place. From a realtor's point of view, the long term isn't as long for them as it is for it's a shorter term for us than it is for them because the inevitable is going to happen.
Right.
So it's a partnership that we look at working with because very often the best quality of life is to stay home with help.
Yeah, and studies definitely show that people are happier staying at home.
Absolutely.
It's their familiar surroundings, and they know where they are, and they have all their friends and family there. But I have to say, since I went through it with my own father and mother, that as a adult child having to take care of someone and be responsible, you're always worried that something's going to happen in the
Absolutely.
home, which is why I guess we call an agency like
Correct.
yours.
And we're eyes on. So very often we have clients whose payer is an adult child, and you can call in. We can give you reports. We work oftentimes with geriatric care managers. They're often hired by out-of-state family members, local family members, someone hiring someone for themselves. A geriatric care manager can handle the case from soup to nuts, and we work very much in partnership with them. Anytime we have a client care binder in that home. It's an opportunity for our caregivers as well as family member caregivers. Because remember, more caregiving is given by family members, which are not paid, than paid caregivers. This works as a partnership. So let's say Frank is taking care of Mary, but Frank needs to go out twice a week. The caregivers can put notes in the notebook so that Frank can see what happened or what they did, shower, bathe, she ate, she did not eat, bowel movements.
So there's a record of what's
There's a
happening.
record of what's happening, and then the adult children have that as a resource.
When I saw the statistic that was up there that, 36% or so of households, or 36 million people are giving care to their relatives, and 43 are giving it, in a larger sense. I was astounded. It's like a tenth of the population.
Yes, it is.
That's
Yeah.
just amazing. And do you think that the system in this country, let me ask you a political question here. Do you think that the system in this country is set up to help our seniors and to help families?
Quite frankly, I think living in a capitalistic society where we look at the dollar more than we look at health and human services, it's a situation that is not the same as many other cultures. Having said that, what help is available when families need that help is really hard to find. There's a misconception that getting help means that you failed your parents. There's a sense of responsibility. But burnout is huge. I mean, you went through it with your parents.
Absolutely.
It's taxing.
My father had Alzheimer's, and
Yeah.
in that book, The 25-Hour Day, was really true for a caregiver.
Yeah,
The day just never stops.
correct. It doesn't.
Yeah, it was very hard.
Speaking of which, very often, let's use the Frank and Mary situation. Frank goes to sleep and is worried that Mary's going to get up and start cooking dinner, or she's going to go for a walk and forget where she is. So given whatever the circumstances are, we look to work with both parties to improve their quality of life. So for example, we do overnights. We will come in 11 o'clock at night, leave at 7 in the morning, and our caregiver stays awake. Their job is to watch a sleeping person. We have them clock in every hour on the hour so that we know that they're awake, so that they have a reason to be awake,
Wow.
and so there can't be any situation where they were unseen. Because as the caregiver, you need that sleep.
Right. So can you just go over some of the different categories then that you cover? There's like companion care and personal care and that sort of thing.
Of course.
Yeah.
When you talk about companion care, that's a category of almost like being a friendly visitor.
Right.
When I worked at the Needham Council on Aging, we had friendly visitors. In our agency, we don't necessarily have companion care because our philosophy is if someone needs care, we want eyes on that's a little bit more trained, a little bit savvy as to what is normal and what is not. So we don't do companion care per se. That's not to say that we won't be a companion and be friendly, but when someone starts talking about using their fork to comb their hair, or they're talking about using the phone with that squiggly thing that's attached to the wall, these are signals that maybe something more is going on. So as such, all of our caregivers are trained at multiple levels. They go through a tremendous amount of training before they see a client so that we can progress with the client.
I always think of companion care as driving someone to the doctor's appointment or doing grocery shopping
Correct.
with them. And,
And we do that. We do all that. All of our caregivers are required to have a mass driver's license, a clean driving record, and insurance. And we check that across 50 states. And we
Wow.
update it every year. Because someone is home doesn't mean they need to be homebound. The point of us being there is to improve their quality of life. So we have some clients who we take grocery shopping into yoga class. We're there twice a week. And what we do is their list of things to do. And the spouse can go do their thing, and someone else is caring for the person who needs the assistance. If our caregivers don't drive, they don't get a shift.
I have to tell you a funny story because someone I knew, an older woman, saw an ad for companion care wanted, and she went, and what this woman, the older woman, wanted was to have someone go with her to Broadway shows.
Yeah.
So her son would buy the tickets and they would both go to Broadway shows.
It's wonderful. And to take that step further, we would drive them to the show so you don't have to worry about hiring a taxi or who's going to park and all that. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And like I say, we take people hair done, post office, grocery shopping, and exercise class.
And then there's like care and hygiene. What exactly
Correct.
is that?
So that is expected. That is part of assisted daily living. That is personal hygiene. So for example, we'll have someone, a gentleman who we'll see on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and we provide them with, bathing, showering, make sure the laundry is done. We do light housekeeping. We will do meal preparation. One of the activities we'll do with the client is sit down and decide what are we going to buy, where are we going to get it, what is the menu. With the population that are working as home health aides and CNAs, certified nursing assistants, very often the immigrant population. And there can be I don't like your food, I don't like the smells. Well, what can we do together? It can be an activity to plan meals and then to cook them. We do require that all of our caregivers speak and understand English.
Yeah, I imagine once someone is really in your home, it almost feels like you're sharing your home like a
Correct.
part of the family, and they
Exactly.
have to have a good fit.
And that's something that's very important to us, developing those relationships.
And what happens if there isn't a good fit?
Well, that's a really good question. So we have client service managers. We have 2 who go out to evaluate the client, and we ask questions. We try to get a gauge on their personality. Initially, we might have 1 or 2 or 3 different aides coming and going until you can get a stable schedule and a good match. Once that happens, we try to pair a caregiver with a client so that they can develop a relationship. If the caregiver can't make a shift, we have 2 supervisors who will go out and cover that shift, and those supervisors know all the clients and all the caregivers, so they can be a good fill-in.
Oh, so they'll actually
Yes.
do it themselves.
Exactly. We look at developing relationships. It's all about having that companionship, that compassion, to move forward.
And I certainly know from, again, personal experience that when you have somebody who is confused, is angry or frustrated because of Alzheimer's or dementia, it's that much harder because they're not always on their best behavior or
Correct.
courteous,
Yep, yep.
and they're panicked and fearful. So what do you do in those cases?
Well, to start with, before any of our caregivers see any clients, they go through 2 full days of training. One part of that training is what is normal aging, what is dementia and Alzheimer's, and what are the characteristics associated with different stages of the disease. As part of that, what are techniques to use to make a situation better? For example, if I was to visit your dad and he had Alzheimer's, and he used to play chess, he might be able to play today, but tomorrow he might not. So tomorrow we're still going to play chess. It might be a matter of putting the white and black pieces on the board. It might not be actually the strategy of which piece does what.
Right.
It's the idea of the activity, visually seeing that the chessboard and the pieces are being played with. Doing laundry. Someone may not be able to fold a shirt and put it into the drawer, but they may be able to pair socks or take the laundry out of the basket and put it back into the basket. So you're meeting the client wherever their needs are at that moment in time.
Well, I certainly think that you've given us some clue as to what your company, the advantages of your company, but can you kind of run through them? Obviously, staffing is a huge one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So right now there is a
Excuse me.
staffing shortage.
Right.
For every job that's available, every posting that's out there, you have 6 people applying for every 10. So there's a shortage. There's also a shortage because the immigrant population is, let's say, in flux right now, based on the political
they're
climate.
under assault, I would say.
And because we only hire people who are certified nursing assistants and home health aides, they have to have passed a test. They have to pass a test that we give to them. If they don't pass the test, they don't get an application. One thing that we're doing in our Norwell office is we've set up an opportunity for people to become certified home health aides. So because there isn't a labor pool, we're creating one. We're
I see.
saying, you've been a companion.
Let me ask you, do
Yeah.
you supply green cards or?
No. We do not do that. We verify,
I
but
was
we
going
do
to say
not.
you would be flooded with.
Yeah, no, that's something we don't do. But we
Right.
provide the tools to do the job. If someone has the right temperament, the right intellectual communication ability, the compassion, we will say, you're a good fit, come to our class.
Well, let me flip the coin then.
Mm-hmm.
What's the advantages of a caregiver coming to you rather than doing it independently?
That's a really good question, and I have 2 answers for that. One is they are protected because if the client starts acting in a way that isn't appropriate or they have a slip and fall and you have to call an ambulance, you have us behind you. We're available 24/7.
What does that mean, you
That
behind them?
means that we have a staff person, a nurse, who is on call 24/7. So let's say someone falls out of bed and they're bleeding. They call 911. They then call us. We respond to them. The caregiver goes with the client to the ER. That person has a support. The caregiver isn't there by themselves. If they need the assistance, we're there to provide that. What do I do? How do I do this? What should I wait till the family comes? If it's a caregiver who's providing service with no backup, they have no idea they don't have a support system themselves.
And then what about insurance? Are you insured for accidents or things that happen? Or how does insurance work?
Insurance in terms of what? Like if...
Insurance in terms of someone claiming that the caregiver stole something or that...
That's a really good question because when you're working with people who have dementia, they think that they have their white sweater, but their white sweater isn't where they thought that it was.
Right.
And they're looking and you stole it. Because we have techniques and we know that this is something that happens, we work with the family, we work with the other members of their support team to say this is what's happening, this is the documentation as to what has occurred. From an employer perspective, let's say you were going to hire a home health aide, hiring your father's nurse who is really kind in the hospital is a really kind thing to do, but it doesn't protect you in terms of when that person can't be there, who's going to back them up. What's going to happen when there is a thought of theft? What happens when, and it's all the other whens.
And there's a lot of them.
Exactly. So to use an agency is really wise on both the employee and the employer's perspective.
And
It
certainly I
protects
think it's
everybody.
wise for the family and the client of the
100%,
family.
yeah.
Absolutely. So you have a professional staff that you train.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving break and reports back to the family, you know, what's
Yep.
going on. You told us supervisory management levels, which I think is great. And then I read on your website you have special programs?
We do. We have our program for Alzheimer's is called Senior Gems. It's a staging process. It starts with sapphire being clear blue, normal aging. We're all going to forget things. That's normal. Ranging down to ranging down to pearl, which is towards end of life. And each stage has different characteristics. We train our caregivers on what that means because nobody stays at one place, and there's characteristics and behaviors that are associated with that. We also do Parkinson's disease training so that our caregivers know that's a very different, it's a neurological disease that can be physical, how to work with and treat and transfer and feed and respond to Parkinson's, which is different from Alzheimer's.
You know, I saw on your website again that you had associations, like with the
Yes.
Michael J. Fox
Yep.
Association. and
Exactly.
so does that help you in that regard?
It helps us in the sense that the Michael J. Fox Foundation has identified senior helpers, and we're a national corporation with local franchises, as recognizing that we know how to work with people with Parkinson's. We've partnered with the Michael J. Fox, and they've partnered with us as a resource to the people who need services. We also have rolled out a Going Home Safe program. That's geared towards your skilled nursing facility. Someone has a hip replacement. They've been in rehab. Now it's time to go home. They're going from a secure, predictable, controlled environment to what could be chaos. They're very likely to forget how to stand up properly, what to do in terms of when you're standing at the counter, how to make a cup of coffee. We don't provide physical therapy, occupational therapy. We provide cues to remember what to do. So what has been identified is if you can stay home safe in the first 3 days, the first 10 days, the first 30 days, you're not going to be readmitted. You don't want readmission, and the discharge doesn't want you to come back. They want you to stay home safe.
Because they don't get reimbursed for?
Correct. They get penalties for that readmission.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, you've gone over a lot of the screening that you do and the training and the supervising. Do you provide nursing care?
We do not. Our aides are supervised by nurses, RNs, who keep up with their accreditation. They are the link between the skilled nursing facility and a VNA.
Well,
which
what
is,
happens if someone needs to have medication, for example?
Our nurses will go out and administer medication.
Oh, they
Our
do.
home health aides don't, but our nurses can. We work very closely with VNAs, which can be home health. We work with the parties that need to be serving the client. We also speak the same language as our skilled nursing facilities. When someone is getting care in an assisted living, we work closely with a resident care director, who very often is a nurse, so that level of supervision is trickled down.
So if, let's say I have somebody in my family who needs care, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a senior, right? I
Correct.
mean, it could be somebody recovering, like you were saying, from an
Right.
operation. What is the procedure? What happens? What am I to expect here?
In terms of what?
In terms of contacting you, getting someone calling me back, having someone
So the
visit?
procedure would be to call our office, or somebody calls on behalf of the individual. Our client services manager does an intake. They do an over the phone assessment, and then they go out and meet the patient. The family member may be there, but we want to talk to the person who's going to be receiving services. If it's a husband and wife, both parties may be there, but we're talking to the person who's going to receive services, not Frank, who's going to be away while the caregiver's there. If someone is coming from a medical facility, our nurse manager will speak to the nurses as part of that discharge plan.
I see. And then what can I expect as a family member again, or as someone who needs care from you? Someone arrives every day. Do they call first? What happens?
Well, we put a schedule in place. Very often, the home health aide arrives. If it's a locked, if it's a residential, they can ring the doorbell and be let in. If the person isn't capable of letting in, very often they'll leave a key in a lockbox, like realtors. You have the keypad.
Right.
We will do that. The most important part is put the key back in before you leave.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah. As far as daily, you report in, you have your list of tasks. In our care binder, it has the tasks to do. Part of that is, hello, how are you? Always asking, what is it that you would like to do today while I'm here? Right. Having that checklist, and then documentation. We do have a requirement that it gets put into the binder.
Okay. So let me ask you, because we're running out of time, or believe it or not, we could probably talk for another hour here on this subject. What does this cost? What are the costs?
It really ranges. What you're seeing with a private duty home care agency is, quite frankly, from $28 to $34 an hour. It depends on the services that you are contracting for. It does depend somewhat on location. Outside of Boston is a little bit less expensive than inside Boston. What's most important with us and any agency is to be clear on what that provides. We have an hourly rate. We include the nurse assessment, family calls, on call 24/7. Every agency is slightly different. There's many factors involved in it. Insurance does not pay for private duty home care.
What about long-term insurance?
Long-term care insurance is something that's been purchased in advance. We love long-term care insurance because people want to use it. It's something they've bought and they've paid for. However, we have someone who's 94 years old who is saving it for when she needs it. Because there's a term, there's a limit. You've bought a term and you're only going to get X back. And so she's saving it for when she needs it because she doesn't need it right now.
Well, mazel tov to her.
Right, whatever works.
Terrific.
Whatever works.
Right, that's great. But so you're saying insurance doesn't pay. What about Medicare or Medicaid? Or?
Nope, not unless it's through ASAPs, which serve elders, or there's been determination that there's financial need. Generally, we don't take, as a private duty home care agency, we don't take Medicare.
Right, so it's mostly cash out of pocket.
Correct.
I see. Okay, great. And we don't have time, unfortunately, for more ways that you've helped specific clients. But how can people contact you if they want?
That's a great question. We're available both online and by calling our office. I could give you the phone number. I don't know.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Our phone number is 617-500-0999. Make sure I got that right. I would hate to give the wrong phone number. I did give it wrong.
Should they call you directly, or?
By calling the office at 617-500-6999. You can just ask for the client services manager, request information, or you can ask for me. Mm-hmm. I'm always available.
Okay, and what is your title?
I'm the Community Relations Coordinator is my title.
It's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful.
Right.
I'm involved with being out in the community, doing outreach, education, and sales and marketing.
Well, Penny, thank you so much. This has been
Thank you.
great, and people really should call you because you are a wealth of information on top of being, having a great company.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.